I have wanted to make this video for years now, and I'm finally ready to do it. We are going to talk about my favorite band, The National. Now, if you watch this channel, you probably know that I love The National, and you probably have some respect for my taste in music, because otherwise I'm not sure why you'd be watching these videos. That being said, whether you're a fan of the band or not, I would encourage you to watch this video. Because if you're a fan, I'm sure you're probably curious how I rank the albums. And if you're not a fan, maybe this video will change your mind. It'll give you a great way to enter into the band's discography, which is pretty large at this point, and maybe shed some light on some albums that you might not know about. If you haven't yet, I would encourage you to subscribe to this channel. I have 400 plus videos of amazing vinyl and music content. Lots more to come, including some pretty exciting announcements this year, but let's talk about The National. What is there to say about a band that has a perfect discography? They've been my favorite band since 2008. My first introduction to them was the album Boxer, and I have since listened to all of their albums countless times. They are still my favorite band in 2021, and that says a lot considering I have thousands of records and I love so many albums and so many artists, but this is the one that continuously stays on top. Known for Matt Berninger's signature baritone sound, the band puts out these moody and atmospheric songs that sometimes are really energetic and sometimes are extremely somber, but they always hit you right in the feels. They put out these relatable musical earworms that get stuck in your mind and heart. So I'm going to rank their albums from worst to best, although worst is a misnomer in this situation because there is no bad National album. They're all great. But with that being said, every ladder does have a bottom rung. Some of these opinions might be controversial to fans of the band, but I guess we'll see what happens in the comment section. I used a specific system to rank each album. I went through and I assigned each song on the album a score out of 10. I then divided it by itself, and that gave the percentage of what the album was out of 100. Now, I view almost all these albums as perfect 10s, but that doesn't mean they all receive a score of 100%. It's kind of like there can be some weaker songs on the album that are still fantastic. I kind of ranked the songs against one another within the context of the album. It's kind of complicated, but I wanted to simplify it, so a percentage ranking gives it its position on this list. Now let's start with the worst album on the list, which is 2017's Sleepwell Beast. I know some of you might be freaking out. This is the bottom of my ladder. And to me, I'm kind of surprised that this can be people's favorite album by the band. This is a lot of people's entry point to the band because this is kind of the peak of where they were the most recognizable as a band in the public consciousness. As someone who's a huge fan of the band though, this album didn't hit like I hoped it would. I was so excited for it to come out, and when I heard it on first listen, I wasn't completely blown away. A lot of the album kind of sounded similar to me. It had this kind of morose vibe to it that of course I love the band for, but none of the songs or the lyrics were really hitting me hard on first listen, which is rare because usually they do. The songs fade in and out of these memorable moments, but sometimes they overstay their welcome a little bit. I love some of the glitchier elements they introduced to their sound, especially with the lead single, The System Only Dreams in Total Darkness, which is my favorite song on the album by far. But for some reason it doesn't hit differently when it comes to the sonics compared to everything else in their discography. When System came out, I was excited for this glitchier new version of their music, but then I was sad to see it didn't really carry through the album the way I had hoped. After System, it really starts to pick up again around I'll Still Destroy You. And of course Guilty Party, which is their kind of Radiohead-esque slow ballad on the album. The next two songs were fairly weak, and the closer might be my least favorite closer of their whole discography, and they're known for really solid openers and closers. The easiest way for me to explain what I feel about this album is that I like every song on this record, but if I was at a live National show and they played anything from this record outside of maybe System, I would wish it was anything else from their discography. So that being said, Sleepwell Beast is my least favorite of the National's records. Show you guys the record. I'll go through and show all the variants, but this is a cool green variant they did only for their Forest Hill Stadium shows they did when they were touring the album. Next up, we have the National's self-titled debut in 2001. This album is really underrated. It has a bit of a country twang at times, which they've eschewed in the rest of their catalog, and I'm not a country fan personally, but I really like that kind of sonic Americana element that it adds to these songs. What I like about this record is that as you kind of discover the rest of their discography, there are a lot of allusions, whether it's melodically or lyrically, to future albums and songs in the rest of their catalog, especially the song 29 Years, which is a direct predecessor to the song Slow Show off Boxer. Two of my all-time favorite National songs are actually on this record. I'm talking about Cold Girl Fever and Bitters and Absolute. Unbelievable knack for melody, and these guys showed it right off the bat, and they only continued to expand as they went on. This album is their most underproduced and lo-fi record, but it also shows just how good the songwriting is. I just don't think this album gets enough love. I think it has an incredibly strong run of songs all the way through Watching You Well. Then there are 3 in a row that are good, not great, but the album ends on a fantastic song, Anna Freud. I honestly turn to this album more than I do Sleepwell Beast, which is why I rank it higher. And I think this album really shows who the band becomes in the following albums. And for that, as a debut, that's impressive enough. This is where it sits on my list. I am really proud to own this unique variant. This is a translucent blue that was sold on the Brassland store years ago, long sold out. They just did a recent reissue that was a blue and white split, I believe, when they remastered this as well as a few other records. I might get some more hate here, but this is where the next one comes in. This is 2010's High Violet. This is a lot of people's favorite National album. This is also a lot of people's entry point into the band if they joined in the, 2010 era versus the mid-2010s. This was where they really started to achieve a lot of acclaim, and they were kind of one of those bands that could do no wrong in the critics and fans' eyes. Their name was more recognizable whether you knew their music or not, you knew of them. And I was riding on the high of their catalog, getting so excited for this, and I remember distinctly when this album dropped and how excited I was to listen to it, and I really liked it on first listen, but I didn't think it achieved what the discography prior necessarily had. It's an excellent album, but there are some low points. People love the opener, Terrible Love, and I think it's a great song, especially in the live setting. But for me, compared to all of their other album openers, it's definitely on the lower echelon, maybe even bottom 3. The songs that didn't grab me at first were Anyone's Ghost, Lemon World, and Vanderlyle Crybaby Geeks. All of them have grown on me, and I love all those songs now. Vanderlyle I had to see live to hear the acoustic sing-along that they do. Lemon World is one of those songs that really creeps up on you, and I just think that there are a couple low points that justify it being at this point on the list for me as a full album. I love this record, but if I had to pick one record on their discography that's the most overrated, it's this one. And that's not to say it's not nearly perfect. It's just that I hold this band to such a high standard that I think that people that treat this as the best album are missing something, in my opinion. That's just my opinion. I will say that Afraid of Everyone and Conversation 16 are two of the best songs the band has ever penned. I have the original press on purple vinyl, but I really like this expanded edition they just came out with. It's got a really nice purple and white split going on. It has a little obi strip on the front. Really nice packaging, really cool art. I always liked the kind of rainbow scribbles that were going on with this record. Moving on, we have their second album, 2003, Sad Songs for Dirty Lovers. If High Violet's the most overrated album of the band, this is the most underrated. A lot of fans tend to think that the pre-Alligator output isn't necessarily worthy of the same discussion as all the stuff after. I wholeheartedly disagree. Sad Songs has some of the best songs in their whole discography, and it shows both sides of the spectrum, their aggressive side and their kind of slower, moody, more morose side. This is the first album that really feels like a true National record, especially compared to the first one, which has a little bit of a different songwriting style that alludes to the future, but this one really encapsulates the beginning of what they become. Cardinal Song is one of the best openers the band has ever done. It is so sad. It is an absolutely heartbreaking song, but it's perfect. And Available is one of the heavier songs in the band's discography, and if you ever had a chance to see it live, I had the luck of seeing it once. Matt screams during it. It is such an intense live song, even compared to the album version. Every song on this album has a great groove to it, whether it's up-tempo or down-tempo. Each song brings something new to the table, and it's a great listen front to back. The final 2 tracks are my favorites outside of the opener. Patterns of Fairy Tales is an absolutely magical song, and Lucky You, if not devastating, is a beautiful closer. I mean, lyrically, it is just so dismal, ironic and sad, but beautiful melodically, which I think I love when artists do that. Elliott Smith was great with this when it came to like having a really positive sound but really downtrodden lyrics. That song encapsulates it perfectly. A beautiful, somber way to end a terrific album, if not absolutely soul-crushing. I have the original Brassland white vinyl pressing of this as well, but I thought I'd show off my favorite variant, which is the Vinyl Me Please splatter they did. This is so cool. Was glad to get this when it came up for sale years ago. Next up, we have 2013's Trouble Will Find Me. I have these crazy deluxe box set that slides open. It's on 2 clear discs. It's kind of fragile, so I don't love to open it too much. It comes with a bunch of art prints too. I will say, before getting into why I love this record, the pressing is extremely disappointing. It's noisy. It doesn't have a lot of good dynamics. This is a really cool collector's piece, but ultimately I'm a little disappointed in how they pressed this. That album deserves a really high quality pressing. And unfortunately, truth be told, a lot of the National records sound just good on vinyl. Nothing sounds unbelievable. Again, I think that they could go for a full vinyl remaster box set one day, but one can only hope. There are a few tracks on this album that I don't think are necessarily groundbreaking for the band, even for the time it came out, but the high points overshadow anything that could be perceived as less than stellar. I Should Live in Salt is one of my favorite openers of any national record, without a doubt. And the following two songs were the first singles that were released from the record, Demons and Don't Swallow the Cap. And I remember when those came out, I was so excited for this record. I loved High Violet, but I was thinking this could even top it, and ultimately it ended up doing so. Sea of Love is a great anthem, and This Is the Last Time is a top 10 song of the band, if not even higher. Graceless is one of my favorite live songs they do. Matt puts so much effort into that. He tends to run through the crowd, which is really fun. And the most popular song of the entire band's discography is on this album, I Need My Girl, which Matt's honest lyricism mixed with the hypnotic swirling guitar work is just an unforgettable track that, while it may be their most popular, it is also objectively one of their best. The next two albums were tied percentage-wise, so I kind of ranked them just a little arbitrarily, but I think my number 2 album is my number 2 just because of what it means to me as a fan, how I got into the band versus this one. Number 3 is 2019's I Am Easy to Find. This is their most recent full-length LP, and to my shock, it kind of split the fan base. It's a huge departure from their usual sound because they brought in a myriad of amazing, talented women to complement Matt's vocals and occasionally even take the lead. Some fans did not like that, and they thought that it took away from what they loved about the band, which was Matt's signature sound carrying each song. For me, though, I think it only enhanced it. This is a love it or hate it album from what I could tell from national fans, and I am firmly in the love it category. It also helps that I got to go to one of the 5 special shows they did all around the world to promote this before it came out. My show in LA, I got to have some awesome special guests. In addition to most of the vocalists from the album, they also had Feist and Phoebe Bridgers come out and do some stuff, which was fantastic. The glitchiness they started to play around with on Sleepwell Beast is mostly gone outside of the really great opener, You Had Your Soul With You. And it's replaced with this ironclad, mature next phase of a band's songwriting that relates to where they are in their own lives at this point as they're kind of, aging rock stars in a way, having families and, the crises that come with, having children and struggling with fame and wanting to make music. And it's really honest and heartfelt, and it really carries the album through in a beautiful way. Worth noting is that this album is actually accompanied by a short film that stars Alicia Vikander, and she was there at the Q&A at my show, which was really cool. But it's worth watching that short film because it really brings a lot of the themes that this album tackles to life in a very tangible and emotional way. Quiet Light, Oblivions, The Pull of You, and Rylan are some of the band's absolute best tracks, with Rylan dating back to the High Violet sessions. They've been teasing that, playing snippets at live shows, doing radio shows where they play early versions of it, so fans were elated to hear it finally come to life on this record. Light Years is a beautiful closer, one of my favorite, and the titular song, I Am Easy to Find, is a top 3 song of the band for me. I get goosebumps every time I hear it. It encapsulates quite literally everything I love about this band in one song. Coming up at number 2, we have 2007's Boxer. This is kind of where the band became a critical darling on all the indie blogs, and where they were kind of this up-and-coming, really hot, great songwriting indie rock band that, just put out a shockingly perfect record in 2007. Indie rock royalty, I would say. This is a landmark album that is worthy of being played front to back, and they actually have played it front to back in a few shows. Fake Empire is an iconic song in the band's catalog, and one of my favorite album openers they've ever done. There isn't a low point on this record, and the mood that they set throughout is the most indicative of who the band is at their core, in my opinion. Slow Show is my second favorite song by the band, with incredible lyrics such as I leaned on the wall and the wall leaned away. Just the visual there is just, I love that so much. Green Gloves, Start a War, and Gospel are also huge standouts for me. But the whole record just rips, whether it's slick guitar riffs or cutting melodies or their relatable, mysterious lyrics. I rank this number 2 because it'll always have a special place in my heart because it was my gateway into what became my favorite band. This version right here is on yellow vinyl, which I think matches really nicely with the cover's yellow title. And last but certainly not least, 2005's Alligator. My favorite album of the band and my favorite album of all time. Alligator to me is a perfect record. That isn't to say every song is a 10 out of 10, but the experience, the story that it tells as you listen to it, for me, it doesn't get much better than that when it comes to music in general. I love the story so much that it actually inspired me in 2011 to make a short film that I acted in that was inspired by the story that I believe this album was telling, what it meant to me. I kind of extrapolated and created something that was something that I want to just get out in the world because it was what the album meant to me. It's what I thought they were trying to say in certain parts, and I'm really proud of it. Secret Meeting is a legendary opening track, just unbelievable guitar work on that song, and then leading into Karen is a 1-2 punch that most bands could only dream of. Lit Up and Able are these up-tempo anthems on the album that are punctuated by some of the more slower, somber songs like Baby Will Be Fine, Looking for Astronauts, and Daughters of the Soho Riots. That last one almost brings me to tears. A top 5 national song for me. And my favorite song of the whole band is All the Wine. It sits comfortably towards the middle of the album. It encapsulates everything I love about the band. Again, it has Matt's deep, crooning, mysterious, puzzling lyrics with amazing instrumentation around it. Shimmering, floaty guitars around a grounded, catchy drum part. And the closer, Mr. November, is a song that they do that has a ton of pomp and circumstance. It's a live favorite. Everyone sings along. Really, really powerful, beautiful track. It shows the dichotomy of the band perfectly with these slow, reflective parts that are just broken up by these moments of drunken frenzy. I got this signed by Bryce Dessner, and I'm hoping one day I'll have it signed by the whole band. And of course I have the green, lime green, yellowish green variant. So that is my ranking of the National, my favorite band's albums. If you don't know the band, I would love for you to check out some of them and leave a comment with your thoughts. If you do know the band, leave a ranking in the comments. I would love to see what your order is, and if you have justification for it, even better. Thank you guys for watching this and indulging me. I hope that it can open up more people to what I think is maybe the best band of all time. I didn't include their EPs, which are great. Virginia EP and Cherry Tree EP, fantastic. But yeah, you really can't go wrong with this band. Give them a try. And if you tried before, try again. I look forward to chatting with you guys in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. Take it easy.